Do I really need to go shopping for food or just use up what I might already have hiding out in the pantry, freezers, or fridge? Over the summer, my normal routine has slipped away and was replaced with speed and ease, leaving some gaps in my food storage. Today, I'm taking control, refilling the stores, and making plans for what we actually need to purchase. I'm also going to give you an updated budget breakdown, which includes mainly organic and super high quality foods for our family of 7, and take you shopping with me. For the past 2 years, I have placed a once-a-month grocery order with a big national supplier of organic bulk goods. Now, this has been really great for us, and I've only needed a few things in between, a few items, a very few at my local grocery store, and then a few items which I pick up at Sam's Club. Well, this month it was time for my big grocery order, and I honestly couldn't think of anything specifically that we needed. That's the first time in 2 years, which made me think it was probably time to take a look inside my pantries, see exactly what I was running low on, and do a big inventory to make sure that I'm not missing out on some things that we really needed, or that I'm properly using what we've been stocking up on. At the same time, I wanted to take this opportunity to inventory my home canned goods and make sure not only that the jars were getting properly rotated as the kids would come in and pull off a new jar, but that we're properly using everything that I've been making and making plans for what I need to work more into my rotation. There were a few things that popped out here. As shocking to me as it actually is, we have more apple butter than we're moving through, and we're also not getting through the bulk of the pickles like we did in years past. So we're going to start looking for ways to properly incorporate those so all that time and effort does not go to waste. If you happen to have a favorite way to use up apple butter, please drop that below because we're not getting through enough just putting it on our biscuits, and I'd love your help in that regard. I'm also running a little bit low on my potatoes, which I found there. And over on the bulk goods shelf, everything was looking pretty good. I have all the basics to refill those downstairs, so that one was pretty easy to pass. Now, one thing that I thought I was out of was homemade chicken stock. And I have a lot of chicken carcasses that I've been freezing up in the freezer just to make exactly what I thought I was out of. But as it turns out, when I was doing inventory in my second pantry, which you'll see in a little bit, I had moved all of the chicken stock into the other room. So this inventory process has already saved me the time that it would have taken to put that chicken stock together today, which was a huge blessing for my overall schedule because I had a lot going on. Now, right now, what you're seeing is something that we are completely out of, which is the waffles that my kiddos love to have frozen up on demand, ready to go in the freezer. This is a recipe from Grits and Grains. It does use 100% freshly milled wheat, but you can substitute, of course, just a regular all-purpose if you like. My kids grab and go with these anytime they want a quick breakfast or breakfast for lunch or dinner, just depending on the day. They love the waffle and they love a really thick, nice Belgian waffle. So this is something that I love to make up in bulk. It goes a lot faster for me when I can put 15 or 20 waffles in the freezer in one go than making them every time the kids want something like that for breakfast. Another thing that I really love about this recipe is that it takes 8 regular eggs. So I'm hiding a whole bunch of protein in these really, really nutritious waffles. Okay, this is confession time. It wasn't until recently, and I mean really recently, that I learned that true actual maple syrup can't just hang out in the cabinet like the syrup that I used as a kid. Now we keep it in the refrigerator, which brings its own set of problems, which is what you're seeing there. I'm actually using a hot water and just putting my mason jar down inside to slowly warm up the syrup so I don't have to warm it up in a pan over on the stove and get another dish dirty during the process. Using this method actually just speeds it along for me, and it's something that I don't have to worry about because it is going to be the perfect temperature by the time the waffles are ready to go. While we're on the topic of my syrup, I want to take just a second to tell you about that really cool blue lid that you see right there on top of my jar. This lid is from a company called Solite, and I have been playing around with this for the past few weeks. You might have seen a preview of this on my last upload when I went on vacation. I made a blue cheese dressing in a lid just like this to make sure that it was safe and sealed in as we were traveling. And I found that the more I use these, the more I love them. It has a long ergonomic handle on the back, and the flip up lid actually locks in place so it doesn't flop forward when I'm pouring. Needless to say, I am not the only person in my house that uses these lids, and it has been a real lifesaver because typically when we make a big half gallon of tea like this, there's more spill than I want to admit when my kids are pouring their own glass. Typically, it's the older boys who are handling the jars by themselves, of course, once they cool down. But it still seems to be that when you're pouring straight out of one, so much comes off the side. Because these specific lids come with this nice gasket inside, it means there is no dripping no matter how full you fill that jar. Which if you can see that tea jar over there, you can see it is probably more full than it should be, but still turned out with a perfect pour. Now, my first kiddo loves hot tea, so I am giving this to him before we add the ice. I've got one in a teacup and one going in a jar for cold. The rest is going to go in the refrigerator, and we just use it over the next day or two because the kids can help themselves without making a mess. If you're interested in some lids like this, make sure to check the description down below. There is a discount code, which I will put down there for you as well. And I want to thank So Light for sponsoring today's content. Now back to the pantry. This is one I have never shown you guys before, and you're about to see why. This is where everything goes that I don't really have a beautiful space for. I love the things that I have out to be really aesthetically pleasing when they're on display, and this cabinet just kind of takes the rest of what's left. Another problem in here, and the main reason that I've never filmed it, is because when we were remodeling everything, we didn't put a light in here. And I know it seems like something so obvious, but when you're in the process of a huge remodel, there are just occasions where things get missed. And this is one of those spaces. A couple times I've went online and tried to look for a light that is battery operated so I can just kind of stick it on the wall or up above. And I, for some reason, have never pulled the trigger. So if you know of one light in particular or something of that sort that works really well, please drop that down below and solve one of the tiny little nagging things that really bugs me about this pantry. Aside from that, this is where the kids just go and shove things on the wrong shelf. Everywhere else, I've got them pretty well organized and trained on where things go, but in here, it gets a little bit chaotic. One of the main reasons is that when we order bulk goods, we have a lot of extras that come into here. So sometimes I have a new gallon of oil, but I also have a little bit left in the one before. That means that the shelves can get really full really fast when there's extra gallons being pushed around. So it is really imperative for me to come in here and inventory it on occasion just to make sure that we have all of the things that we were needing. While I was in here, I did notice that we were lower on ketchup and mustard than we typically like to be. So it was great for me to get in here and shop around. I also noticed that we have a lot of nuts. And so I need to start looking for ways to use those up before they go rancid. Although I will say, I actually purchased cashew pieces instead of whole cashews, and they have stayed really well for me for quite a while with no problems at all. I also found this almost empty half gallon of buttermilk powder. This is something that we use a lot of, and so I need to move it in to marry it to the jar that I already have up on the shelf. That's actually one of my favorite ingredients. I use it all the time in things like powdered ranch dressing and the waffles that you saw me make earlier, because then I don't have to keep any buttermilk around or worry about it going bad. I can just use the powdered version and come out with a really delicious product. So powdered buttermilk, one of my staples, and I'm definitely going to be adding that to the list since I was so low on my extras. Now, as you can see here, I did say I'm running a little bit low on my ketchup and mustard. I know 2 bottles might be a ton for some, but remember, we're a family of 7. I have 5 little kids, and ketchup is one of those things that people really, really enjoy. I also still do buy pizza sauce. I know I have a ton of tomatoes, but the ease of this is just something that I haven't really been ready to give up yet. So now that I have so much sauce that I'm putting on the shelves this year, that might be something that we don't refill going forward. But as you can see here, the flashlight lights the way. It's really the only effective way to light up this closet, and I'm really getting tired of it. So after I took a good look in here, I realized we need to use up some more of our rice noodles. I used to use those a ton because we were gluten-free for a time based on sensitivities for a child, but we no longer are. So those really come in Asian dishes at this point, but I need to use up a lot of those as well as the nuts. After I got a good handle on what was hiding out in that pantry, it was time to go ahead and take the waffles that have been cooling on the counter and get them into the freezer. Now I keep these waffles in the freezer upstairs right here in the refrigerator in the kitchen because they get used so fast. Maybe I should put them downstairs and they wouldn't fly off the shelf so fast, but I do like to keep them close just for ease of use. So these are going to stay upstairs, and I have a pretty good handle on what's in this freezer because it is just our quick grab and go items. We keep things like frozen berries in there. My girls really love those for a snack. I also have just my stash of bones that I keep around for making stock because it's really quick right off of the kitchen here. And I keep like an open bag of tomatoes that's not quite full that I need to put down in the freezer once they do get more full. So just things that we're constantly adding to or using. I also like to chop up onions and keep them there just for easy access and use anytime I have an onion that I'm using and I'm not using the full thing. So those are the kind of things we keep upstairs. This is one of the downstairs freezers. And as you can see here, I have a few bags of frozen corn and some frozen carrots, but I also have some corn on the cob. And if you've been around before, you know that's the way I preserve corn on the cob, straight out of the feed sack and into the freezer, and it cooks up beautifully from frozen on the racks. So usually we have a freezer kind of dedicated to corn, which is what our extra one is going for right now. This one's kind of been taken over by various things. These pizza crust, I did not know that I had an extra bag of pizza crust down there, so we'll be using those up soon. And I'm also finding, if you can see down there, 2 more chickens. I thought I was out. This is the one thing that I had on my list that I was going to get this month from Azure was a huge box of chickens, and it was going to be a pretty pricey order because I didn't know that I needed anything else at the time, and I felt like I had that space in the budget to go for a box of organic chickens. Because I have 2 here and 1 out in my other freezer, I'm going to be able to wait on those chickens because we go through maybe 1 to 2 a month max, so I can keep those for a while. But I am getting low on my shredded cheese. We keep pre-shredded cheese here, and this is what I use for things like pizza or Italian dishes. Purchasing in bulk and then shredding it up saves a ton of money and also makes it quick and ready to go when I do need it. So highly recommend that if you've never done something of that sort. What I have noticed is that I am completely out of the ground beef that I prep in bulk to have ready to go. Usually I take about half of whatever I make up and I will put that with taco seasoning, which makes for really fast tacos in the summer. And it's going to make for really fast taco soup as the fall and winter come around. So now it's time to head out and get a whole bunch of ground meat to restock that supply. We also use the unseasoned portion for things like a Philly cheeseburger. It is so delicious. And if you like more info on that recipe, I'll make sure to make that up for you soon. But it's basically a Philly cheesesteak made with loose meat hamburger. And it is so good. We all really love that. Other favorites that we really enjoy with the already prepared ground beef are soups and stews. We really love a good chili and also a cheeseburger soup. So it just gives us a lot of variety and things that we can use the ground meat for. When I remember the day in advance to get out what I am cooking, as long as I'm doing my proper meal planning, then this only needs to be warmed up. But if you need a last minute option, you can just take your meat, run it under a little bit of warm water, and it breaks apart really fast. So you can throw it into a pan and get it up to temperature. I'm also grabbing a couple pounds of butter here. We buy butter in bulk as well, about 18 pounds at a time, I think. And that saves a lot of money on the overall price, plus gives a good stock so I never run out when I'm baking. I also found while I was out here that I'm getting a little bit low on the mixed berries that my girls love, so I'm going to have to add those to our order as well. If you are interested in how I take care of my ground beef specifically, I did a big batch cooking day back in the early spring headed into baseball season where I showed this exact process and just how easy it is. So I'll make sure to link that down in the description if that's something that you're looking for. In the meantime, I wanted to give you a breakdown, or an update, I should say, on the grocery budget that I gave to you back in early April. Now, I told you at the time that we're spending $850 a month for a family of 7 to have mainly organic, super high quality foods. Now, as of current, of course, inflation has continued to eat us all up, and my budget is a little bit higher than that, but not tremendously. And actually, my last 3 months have been drastically trending downward. And the main reason for that is at this point, my bulk stores are so good that I don't really need to purchase as many items at a time. I'm past the point where I'm buying storage items for the bulk goods like buckets and lids. So that really helps. I'm also not buying glass jars or things to store in. That is an upfront cost when you're beginning to purchase in bulk that will go away as time goes on. So for the last 6 months average, I have spent out of pocket monthly $824.43. But this does not include the $210 that is split over my annual budget for the cow or the half beef that we purchased back last winter. So total comes in at $1,034.45, including the meat. To further break down my budget, my last 3 months, my Azure total has come in around $250 per month. And my 6-month average had it at $452. So that $200 is actually coming back my way, keeping my budget approximately the same currently. But my 6-month average does have it a couple hundred above the $850 that I had back in April. The other things that are added into this budget are every single item we purchase from Walmart, including gifts that we purchase for people or socks and that kind of just household need that we get a lot of times when we're there. So everything we purchase from Walmart is involved in there. Same with Sam's Club, which is a place where we get a lot of clothes when we need them because they have things at a great price. So this is not all food or household item, but it is everything that I spent there during the time because it's a lot easier for me just to give you the entire total than to go through those receipts and split it all out. This total also includes things like shampoo and conditioner, which I do purchase organic. So there is a lot of room for savings there. I'm not saying that to brag about my budget. I'm just saying that as a way to give you a little balance for the things that I'm getting. There were many people a few months back who were talking about budget thinking my $850 was out of line. It was way too high. And then there were about an equal number of people who thought there was no way they could ever get there, even with having a smaller family. So I do want to let you know, I very much could do this cheaper. Quality of my products is the main reason that my prices are so high when I could bring them a lot lower. But that's something that I really don't feel the need to sacrifice on because it's working out well for our family. In this economy, though, I would really evaluate what's working for you and what is affordable at this time, because those things do change. And as our needs change, or if they change, I definitely won't hesitate to make cuts where I need to in order to keep the budget on track. I also do have a pretty good garden. It supplies our year's worth of tomato products, including salsa. I'm also able to provide our pickles or cucumber products for snacking in the summer. We also make or grow a large portion of our onions for several months. So there are some things that come out of the garden during this time of year that make it a little more flexible, although there is a little investment that goes into gardening as well. So that's definitely something to consider when you're looking at it. Now, this pantry is where I found that chicken stock. I brought it in several months ago. Now that I found it, I remember the process or the thought process. I was thinking I use it so often, it'd be good to have it closer. But I also had a little overflow, so I put it in the other room. Well, when my overflow ran out, I totally spaced the fact that I brought it in here. So coming in here to organize and really get up here and look at what's actually on the inside of these pantries was super helpful to me because I was able to skip the process of the chicken stock, but it also showed me what I need to work on. So on my list, I'm adding to can up some more beans to get ready for the fall season. We definitely, as I mentioned before, go through those rather fast because of our soups and stews. And I also need to make up some more of my spice blends. I do make my own taco seasoning, chili seasoning, powdered ranch, and all of those types of things. So if you're interested in that content, I'll make sure to link that one down below as well. But that does help with budget overall. The main reason that's helpful is because there are very few differences in things like a chili seasoning and a taco seasoning. It's mainly the ratios of those ingredients. So when you buy things like chili powder, cumin, dried onion, and garlic in bulk, you can whip up a lot of different blends very easily at your house. Now, once I got all of my canned goods dried up and labeled, it was time to get them on the shelves. This is not the end of those tomatoes. I do have more still in one of the freezers, but it's the end for now. And it got a ton of them out of the way. If you'd like to see the low-tech way that I made that sauce, make sure to check the link in the description. I did just upload that process last week, and they stayed out on my counter until I had time to clean them up and put them away today. One of my favorite parts of the canning process is putting everything on the shelf. It's so gratifying to see the space that you had empty go ahead and fill back up with goods that you can keep and use all winter long. So with my tomatoes going back, the only thing left to do is shop for the groceries that I figured out that I needed on the list. I took off that huge box of chickens that I did not need, and I added on things like ketchup and mustard. I also ordered some syrup. That's one thing that I get from Sam's Club. I find that their price is really, really good for organic maple syrup. So I put in a couple different orders, but the bulk of my grocery store shopping is actually right here at my kitchen table. Ordering online not only saves me a ton of time, but also helps to keep me a budget with no little extra hands throwing items into the cart. I want to thank you guys for walking through my pantries with me today. Hope I've inspired you to do the same. And thanks again to Solite for sponsoring today's content. If you love those mason jar lids, make sure to check out the link in the description down below and grab that discount code because they are so helpful in the kitchen. Until next time, bye friends.